Most of us can't wait to harvest that first tomato from the vegetable garden. And even with our fastest maturing cultivars, it could seem to take forever. But today I'm going to share a technique to get our tomato plant started a little bit sooner. And normally we have to wait until the last average frost date before we plant, which in our studio is around April 15th. But with a little extra protection from frost, we could get our plant set out 3 to 4 weeks earlier. And I'm going to demonstrate a couple of techniques. And the first is using what's called a wall of water. And this is a product that you could purchase at a garden center, or you can order it online. And it's a sheet of plastic with vertical columns that are these little cells. And we're going to fill these up with water. And you can see one that's already set up over here. And the water creates insulation. And so during the day, these cells heat up from the sun, and the heat is released slowly during the night, and it warms up right inside of that teepee. So our tomatoes are going to be planted on 2-foot centers, and I've already put a little mark out here for my 2 feet. And I'm going to center a bucket over the top of that. And I'm just going to dig a narrow trench around the base of this. And this is where I'm going to set the wall of water in, just for a little extra stabilization and to hold it in place. Now you could use this, I'm doing tomatoes, but you can use it also for peppers, cucumbers, and squash. Now there's a top and a bottom. The top has little slits that we're going to fill with water, and the bottom is sealed. You want to make sure that you get the sealed part down. And it looks like I made my trench too narrow, but once we fill this, they're going to expand and it'll tighten up a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and start filling these cells with water. And you can use a hose or a watering can. And I'm only going to fill them a little bit at first. And I fill a couple on each side of the circle. I'm going to go over here just to keep it stable as I work. We're going to eventually fill them 2/3 of the way full. We don't want to fill it up all the way. You could see the one that's already been put up is closed at the top like a teepee. And if we fill the cells up all the way, it would stand open, but we want it closed because that's going to be what traps the heat in, is that closure at the top. Once you've gone around the whole circle, you want to go ahead and fill the cells up so that they're about 2/3 of the way full. Now you actually want to set up your wall of water about a week before you're going to plant. And what that's going to do is warm up the soil both inside and around your wall of water. I actually stuck my hand in there earlier, and it's quite toasty inside of there. Okay, so I've pulled my bucket out, and right now my wall's standing up, but if it's collapsing, you can use just a stick to prop it open while you plant. So we're ready to set our plants in there. We want to actually use a smaller tomato transplant. 3 or 4 inches is sufficient. And I'm going to go ahead and pull off the cotyledons, which are going to be the first set of leaves that we see. They're not true leaves. And then the lowest 2 leaves. And this way we're going to plant set the tomato plant in a bit deeper. It's going to be set to about this level right before the first leaf that's remaining. And what will happen is the tomato plant will produce roots along the stem there, so it'll have a better root system. A great way to dig our hole is to use a bulb planter. And I'm going to reach right down in the center, and I need to dig a nice deep hole to set that tomato plant in. When you take your plant out of the container, you want to make sure not to pull on the stem, but squeeze the sides and sort of slide the plant out. This is nice and loose, but if the soil's real tight or there's a lot of roots wound around, you want to go ahead and gently break those up a little bit. Okay, I'm going to set our plant in the planting hole, and I could see I didn't quite get it deep enough. I'm going to lift it out and just use my hand to scoop out a little bit more soil and set it in again until I get to the depth that I want. And you might have to try it a few times. That looks pretty good. I'll get my bulb planter out of there. And now it's going to be nicely protected in here inside of the wall of water. I'm going to also go ahead and add some compost. And I'm using a really dark colored compost because we all know that dark colors hold the heat. And so this is going to help warm up the soil around our plant. Ideally, you have your mulch in here and your wall of water set up a week before you're going to plant, and that'll help warm up the soil. The dark mulch really helps with that. Like I've already done here, that one's all ready to plant. Once you've got your mulch inside, you want to go ahead and just push the wall of water closed. If it's not closed very well, you could squeeze a little extra water out the top until it stays in a nice little tent or teepee shape. You might need to press the soil down on the outside, and then of course add some more of that dark mulch around the outside. The more you attract heat and light to our walls of water, the better it'll be, and the warmer it'll get inside of there. So another method that we can use is to use a cloche to cover our plants. And this is just an individual plant cover. You might remember your grandparents covering their tomato plants with a glass bell-shaped jar. We don't use glass as much anymore because it's expensive, and a good hailstorm will certainly take those out. You can use just some of your recyclable garbage. A milk jug, juice jugs, or soda bottles work very well. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with our wall of water. We're going to put some dark mulch on the soil, and we're going to set these up a week ahead of time again and warm that soil up inside. And I'm just going to wiggle it down, right down in there. So I have basically a miniature greenhouse here, and next week I could come back and plant inside of it. Now when you're using jugs that have caps, you want to cut the bottom off and set them in the soil that way. And what this allows us to do is, on the warmer days, we could take this cap off and we have some ventilation to let any hot air that's built up inside of there out. And then in the evening we could come back late in the afternoon before it gets too cold and put our caps back on and trap that heat inside overnight. So if you want the bragging rights to the first ripe tomato on your block, you want to consider planting out your tomatoes early with an individual plant protector.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.